Imagine two negotiation rooms. In the first one, people say the right words, logical, polite, packed with arguments, and they still lose. In the second one, a person speaks less. Sometimes they even pause longer than they should. But after those pauses, the other side starts agreeing, not because the offer is better, not because the facts changed, because the atmosphere changed. That atmosphere has a name: social calibration. Most people think negotiation is a battle of logic. Elite negotiators know it's a battle of signals. Signals decide whether you are seen as safe or dangerous, strong or needy, credible or performative, leader or follower, asset or liability. And the brutal truth is this: you can have the best deal in the room and still get rejected because your presence triggers resistance. This book is not about being charismatic, and it's not about manipulation tricks. It's about high-level social calibration, the skill of reading the invisible social rules in real time and adjusting your tone, timing, posture, and framing so the other person feels like saying yes is their best option. Here's why you should listen to the end. Because the most expensive mistakes in negotiations are invisible. You don't lose a deal when you say something wrong. You lose it when you signal the wrong identity. You don't get rejected because your price is too high. You get rejected because you accidentally sound like someone who needs a deal. You don't get interrupted because they're rude. You get interrupted because your status signals are weak. And once you see these patterns, you can't unsee them. In this book, you'll learn the same core mechanics elite negotiators use when they walk into hostile rooms and make people calm down. They deliver hard no's without creating enemies. They raise prices without triggering anger. They expose lies without starting a war. They make the other side feel respected while still controlling the frame. But first, I need to give you a warning. If you use calibration only to win, you will lose long term, because people forgive tough terms, but they never forget humiliation. Elite negotiation is not domination. It is controlled intensity with clean respect. So the promise of this book is simple. You will learn to project strength without aggression, warmth without weakness, confidence without neediness, and you will learn how to adjust in real time, even when the room is tense, even when you're nervous, even when the other person tries to bait you. One more thing. Most books teach techniques. Techniques fail when your internal state is wrong. So we will build this in layers. What you read, what you signal, what you control, what you say, what you make them feel, because that is the order elite negotiators actually operate in. If you stay until the end, you won't just negotiate better. You will start walking into rooms differently, and people will treat you differently before you even speak. If you're ready, we start at the first rule. In elite negotiation, the deal is rarely decided by your argument. It's decided by your position in the social map of that room. Let's build that map. Please subscribe and like this video. It really helps the channel grow. Your support allows me to devote more time to creating higher quality content for you. And write in the comments, what book would you like to hear about next time? What should the next episode be about? Now let's continue. Chapter 1, The Social Map, Why You Lose Before You Speak. Most people walk into negotiations thinking one thing matters: the offer, the numbers, the logic, the best argument. Elite negotiators walk in thinking something else matters first: the social map. A social map is the invisible ranking system in the room. It answers silent questions nobody says out loud. Who has the power here? Who is relaxed? And who is trying to prove something? Who is respected? And who is merely tolerated? Who controls pace, tone, and attention? Who can say no without consequences? Before the first serious sentence, the room already assigns you a position, and that position determines how your words will be interpreted. The same sentence can sound like leadership or like begging. The same request can feel like a fair proposal or like pressure. The same boundary can be respected or challenged immediately. That is why weak negotiators keep repeating their points. They think the problem is clarity, but often the problem is status positioning. Not status as ego. Status as function. Status is a room's belief about your value, your options, and your authority. If the room believes you have options, you sound calm. If the room believes you need them, you sound tense. And humans are extremely sensitive to that difference. The first 10 seconds decide your category. Elite negotiators know the first 10 seconds are not about content. They're about category. In the first 10 seconds, people decide if you are a peer, a subordinate, a threat, a salesperson, a problem, a serious operator. And they decide it using signals that are faster than language. Speed of movement, eye contact length, face tension, breathing rhythm, how you handle silence, how you take space, how you greet people, how you begin. Your words are processed after these signals. If your signals say, I need approval, the room starts looking for reasons to say no. If your signals say, I'm grounded and I can walk away, the room starts looking for ways to cooperate. This is not psychology theory. It's social survival wiring. Humans evolved to detect hierarchy fast because hierarchy predicts danger and reward. The 3 power sources elite negotiators track. Most people think power is money. That's one type. But in real negotiations, there are 3 main power sources. Leverage, who needs who less. Legitimacy, who has a right to make demands. Control, who controls pace, agenda, and emotional temperature. You can be poor and still have leverage. If you have alternatives, you can be rich and still lack legitimacy. If you look like you're pushing, you can have a contract and still lose control. If the other side controls time and tone, elite negotiators constantly ask, which of these 3 do I have? Which do they have? Which can I gain in the first 5 minutes? The neediness leak, the silent deal killer. Neediness is not a feeling. It is a signal, and it leaks through tiny behaviors. Over-explaining, talking too fast, filling every silence, asking too many questions in a row, trying to be like too early, offering discounts before resistance appears, laughing too much at weak jokes, nodding too fast, agreeing too quickly. Most people think they're being polite, but to the other side, it can feel like, this person wants something from me more than I want something from them. Once that perception forms, your bargaining position collapses because the other side senses they can push. Elite negotiators do the opposite. They show interest without urgency. They show respect without chasing. They create calm, not pressure. And calm communicates one thing better than any sentence. I have options. Calibration is not confidence. It's accuracy. A lot of people try to act confident. That is not calibration. Fake confidence is usually loud. It forces itself into the room. Calibration is quiet accuracy. It means you adjust to the room's temperature like a thermostat. If the room is tense, you lower your intensity. If the room is sluggish, you sharpen your pace. If the room is hostile, you become clean and structured. If the room is friendly, you become warm but not casual. Elite negotiators don't pick one personality. They pick the correct dose. The wrong dose creates resistance. Too much friendliness can look like weakness. Too much seriousness can look like threat. Too much energy can look like sales pressure. Too little energy can look like low value. Calibration is the art of being exactly as intense as the situation requires. No more, no less. The status triangle, warmth, competence, strength. In negotiations, people judge you on 3 dimensions. Warmth, are you safe? Competence, are you capable? Strength, can you enforce boundaries? Most people max out one and forget the others. They are very warm, but not strong. They are very strong, but not warm. They are very competent, but socially awkward. Elite negotiators balance the triangle. Warmth opens doors. Competence creates trust. Strength prevents exploitation. If you lack warmth, they resist you emotionally. If you lack competence, they doubt your value. If you lack strength, they test you. The social map places you based on this triangle. And here's the key. You don't need to be dominant. You need to be untestable. Untestable means people sense you are fair, calm, and firm. so they stop trying. The two frames that control everything. A frame is a story that defines what's happening. Most negotiations collapse because two frames appear. Their frame, convince me. Your frame, let's explore fit. If you accept convince me, you become a performer. Performers have low status. Elite negotiators never perform. They explore. Exploration communicates equality. Here is a simple difference in language. Low status. Let me explain why this is a great deal. High status. Let's see if this makes sense for both sides. Low status. We really want to work with you. High status. If the fit is right, we can move fast. Low status. Can you approve this? High status. What would you need to see to approve this? The words are polite in both cases, but the social map, here's something different. The pace weapon. Whoever controls time controls value. Time is a hidden weapon. If you rush, you communicate low value. If you can slow down without awkwardness, you communicate control. Elite negotiators use time in three ways. They don't answer instantly, not as a trick, but because instant answers look like neediness. They pause after key points. A pause makes your sentence feel heavier. They don't let the other side rush the agenda. Rushing is often a tactic to make you agree under pressure. If you learn to hold pace calmly, you gain control without conflict. 8. A quick diagnostic. How the room sees you. Before any negotiation starts, ask yourself, am I speaking faster than usual? Am I filling silence because I feel tension? Did I open with validation or with content? Am I trying to be liked before I'm respected? Did I set an agenda or did I follow theirs? Do I look like I can leave? The room answers these questions unconsciously, and the answers decide your position on the social map. The first move elite negotiators make. Most people begin negotiations with facts. Elite negotiators begin with structure. They do three things early. They set a simple agenda. Here's what I think makes sense. We align on goals, then constraints, then options. They name the tone. I'd like this to be direct and efficient. They create mutual evaluation. Let's see if this is a fit for both sides. This single move shifts the social map. It makes you a peer, not a seeker, not a seller. The rule you must remember. If you forget everything else from this chapter, remember this. Negotiation is not a battle of arguments. It is a battle of interpretation, and interpretation is decided by your signals. Your goal is not to sound smart. Your goal is to be placed correctly on the social map, because once you are placed correctly, your words start working. At the end of this book, you will be able to walk into a room and do something most people can't. You will feel the map forming. You will see where you are being placed, and you will know how to adjust without acting, without forcing, without games. Next chapter, we go deeper. How elite negotiators read people in real time and detect the hidden motive behind what they say. Because people rarely negotiate on the surface. They negotiate underneath it. Chapter 2. Reading what people really want. The motive layer. In negotiations, people almost never talk about their real motive. They talk about reasons. Reasons are clean. Reasons sound logical. Reasons are socially acceptable. But motives are messy. Motives include fear, pride, survival, reputation, and control. Elite negotiators don't get hypnotized by reasons. They listen for the motive underneath. Because if you negotiate with the reason, you waste time. If you negotiate with the motive, you move the deal. The surface lie. It's just business. People love to say, it's just business. But business is humans with consequences. A deal affects someone's status inside their company, someone's reputation with their boss, someone's bonus, someone's job security, someone's identity as competent or smart, someone's fear of being blamed later. So when they argue about price, timeline, or terms, often they're protecting something else. Elite negotiators treat every objection as a signal, not a wall. They ask, what is this objection trying to protect? The 4 hidden motives that drive most negotiations. Most motives in negotiation fall into 4 categories. Safety. They don't want risk. They don't want surprises. They don't want to be blamed. Status. They want to feel smart. They want to feel respected. They don't want to look weak. Control. They want predictability. They want decision power. They don't want to be cornered. Gain. They want value. Money, time, leverage, advantage. Most negotiators only talk to gain. Elite. Negotiators talk to the motive that is loudest in the room. If you misread the motive, you trigger resistance. Example, if their motive is safety and you push urgency, they tighten. If their motive is status and you correct them publicly, they attack. If their motive is control and you force a choice, they delay. If their motive is gain and you talk emotions, they get impatient. The 3 listening channels elite negotiators use. Most people listen to words only. Elite negotiators listen on 3 channels. Channel 1, content, what they are saying. Channel 2, emotion, how they feel while saying it. Channel 3, strategy, what the statement is trying to do. A sentence can be content, but also strategy. Example, we need to think about it. Content, they need time. Emotion, uncertainty or discomfort. Strategy, keep options open. Avoid commitment, test your reaction. Elite negotiators don't argue with we need to think. They diagnose what kind of think it is. The 7 motive signals that reveal the real game. Here are the signals elite negotiators watch for. Speed changes. If they suddenly speak faster, something touched a nerve. If they slow down, they are calculating or resisting. Word repetition. When someone repeats a phrase, it's not style, it's protection. We have policy. We have policy. That usually means, I don't want responsibility. Vague authority. I'll need approval. Legal won't like it. If they don't name the person, it's often a shield. Over politeness. When someone becomes unusually polite, they may be hiding a no. They are trying not to create conflict. Micro avoidance. They answer everything except the key point. That is not confusion. That is avoidance. Sudden jokes. Jokes often appear when tension appears. A joke can be a dodge. Unbalanced questions. If they ask you many questions but reveal little, they are gathering leverage. Elite negotiators treat these signals like a radar. They don't get emotional about them. They get curious. The 2 types of no you must distinguish. A huge skill is knowing what kind of no you're hearing. There is a hard no, they cannot do it, and a soft no, they don't want to do it yet. A hard no usually sounds calm and stable. A soft no usually sounds like justification and movement. Hard no language. We can't sign that clause. That is outside our legal structure. Soft no language. That might be difficult. We usually don't do that. We'll see. Elite negotiators don't push hard against hard no's. They redirect around them. And they don't accept soft no's as final. They explore them. The motive question, that opens a real conversation. There's one question that changes everything. If asked correctly, what's the concern behind that? Not aggressive, not challenging, curious. But you have to ask it in a way that protects their status. Because if you ask it like an interrogation, they lock up. Better forms. Help me understand what risk you're trying to avoid. What would this need to look like for you to feel comfortable? What part of this is most sensitive on your side? If you had to name the main constraint, what is it? These questions move the conversation from reasons to motives. And once motives are visible, solutions appear. The motive ladder, a simple way to go deeper. Elite negotiators use a structure called a motive ladder. It's just why without the word why. Because why can feel accusatory. You climb down the ladder like this. Statement. Your timeline is too fast. Level 1. What makes that timeline difficult? Level 2. Is it resources, approvals, or risk? Level 3. What happens if it moves too fast? Level 4. Who gets blamed if something breaks? Level 5. What would make it safe enough to move faster? Now you're not negotiating time. You're negotiating safety and blame. That is the real issue. The motive trade. Give them what they need, not what they ask. This is where amateurs get confused. People ask for discounts, extra clauses, or longer timelines, but that is not always what they need. Sometimes they need reassurance, cover for their boss, a story they can tell internally, a sense of control. Oh, when they can present, elite negotiators trade for the motive. Example, they ask, we need a discount. You discover the motive. I need to justify this to my CFO. So you don't just cut price. You give them a structured ROI one-pager, a clear comparison table, a phase plan that reduces risk, a pilot structure that protects them, a narrative. This is safer, not just cheaper. You solve the motive, and often the discount disappears. The status safe mirror technique. One of the cleanest tools is mirroring, but done with status safety. Most people mirror like parrots. That feels manipulative. Elite mirroring is different. You repeat the last 2 to 6 words with a neutral tone, and then stop. Examples. Them, we're concerned about compliance. You, concerned about compliance. Pause. Them, your terms are aggressive. You, aggressive. Pause. This does 2 things. It makes them expand. It makes them feel heard without you agreeing. It's powerful because it gives control back to them. People relax when they feel in control, but your tone must be calm. No sarcasm. No drama. The motive trap. Don't expose motives too early. Here's a mistake. You detect their motive and say out loud too early. Example, it sounds like you're worried about getting blamed. If they are not ready, they will deny it because motives are private. Elite negotiators guide people to admit motives themselves. Instead of exposing, you're afraid of blame. They ask, what would happen internally if this went wrong? Now the other person can reveal the motive safely, and once they say it, it becomes negotiable. The rule of elite reading. Most people try to read minds. Elite negotiators read incentives. They ask, what do they win if this succeeds? What do they lose if this fails? Who is watching them? What story do they need to tell after this meeting? If you can answer those questions, you can predict their moves. Because people are consistent with their incentives. Mini field exercise. Read motive in real time. Next time you negotiate, do this. Identify the visible topic, price, time, clause. Guess the dominant motive. Safety, status, control, or gain. Ask one motive question that reduces threat. Mirror their key phrase and pause. Listen for what they protect. Your goal is not to win the moment. Your goal is to reveal the real motive. Because once it's revealed, the deal becomes simple. In the next chapter, we go into a skill that separates professionals from amateurs. How elite negotiators control emotional temperature. Not by being cold, but by staying calm while making the room calmer. Because a calm room makes rational agreements. A heated room makes ego decisions. Chapter 3, Temperature Control. How elite negotiators keep the room calm while staying in charge. A negotiation is rarely lost because of logic. It's lost because the room gets hot. Hot rooms create ego decisions. Hot rooms create punishment. Hot rooms create, I don't care if it's a good deal, I don't like you. Elite negotiators are not just deal makers. They are temperature controllers. They can walk into tension and lower it. They can walk into friendliness and keep it professional. They can hear aggression and not mirror it back. They can deliver pressure without creating panic. That is a rare skill. And it's not personality. It's a system. The golden rule. Emotion moves faster than reason. Your brain processes emotion before logic. That means if someone feels threatened, they stop thinking clearly. If someone feels humiliated, they stop cooperating. If someone feels pressured, they look for escape. If someone feels unsafe, they delay and hide information. Elite negotiators respect this biology. They don't try to win arguments in emotional moments. They stabilize first. Then they negotiate. The 3 temperatures of a negotiation. Most rooms move between 3 temperature zones. Cold, detached, cautious, slow, guarded. People speak formally. They reveal little. They want proof and structure. Warm, cooperative, open, problem solving. People share context. They look for mutual wins. Hot, reactive, defensive, ego-driven. People interrupt. They over-justify. They use hard language. Never, unacceptable, ridiculous. Elite negotiators don't judge a temperature. They manage it. They also know one truth. If you can keep the room in warm or cold, you can close deals. If the room stays hot, you'll get delays, punishment terms, or a silent no. The first source of heat, threat to status. Most conflict is not about money. It is about status. People get hot when they feel disrespected, exposed, cornered, controlled, made to look incompetent. This is why winning too hard is a long-term loss. Elite negotiators protect the other side's status while still protecting their own boundaries. They do it with one mindset. I want you to feel respected, not powerful. Respect lowers heat. Power struggles increase it. The second source of heat, loss of control. People get hot when they feel they're losing control. That's why aggressive sales tactics backfire. That's why forced choices create resistance. That's why sign today triggers emotional rebellion. Elite negotiators give controlled autonomy. They offer options, not infinite options. 2 or 3. Options create a feeling of control. Control lowers heat. Example phrases. We have 2 clean paths forward. Option A is fast and strict. Option B is slower and flexible. Which direction fits your constraints better? Notice what this does. It moves the conversation from emotion to selection. Selection is calmer than defense. The third source of heat, unclear rules. If the rules are unclear, people become suspicious. They start imagining hidden traps. Elite negotiators reduce heat by creating clarity. They do it early with structure. Here's how I propose we run this. Goals, constraints, options, decision. If we align today, we can draft tomorrow. If we don't align, we'll stop cleanly. Clarity creates psychological safety. Safety lowers heat. The temperature tools, what elite negotiators actually do. There are 5 tools elite negotiators use in real time. Not theory, not be calm. These are specific behaviors. Tool 1, slow the pace without looking weak. When a room heats up, amateurs speed up. They talk more. They defend more. They explain more. Elite negotiators slow down. They shorten sentences. They breathe. They let silence work. Why? Because speed signals fear or urgency. Slowness signals control. Simple rule. When the room speeds up, you slow down. When the room gets loud, you get quieter. That contrast resets the nervous system. Tool 2, name the process, not the person. When people get emotional, calling it out personally triggers shame. You're being aggressive. Bad. Instead, elite negotiators name the process. I can feel tension rising. Let's slow this down. It sounds like this point matters a lot. Let's isolate it. We might be mixing 2 issues. Let's separate them. This avoids blame. Blame creates heat. Process language cools a room while keeping authority. Tool 3, validate without agreeing. This is the most misunderstood skill. Validation is not surrender. Validation is saying, I understand your experience. Not, you are right. Elite validators use phrases like, that makes sense from your side. I can see why that would feel risky. If I had your constraints, I'd ask the same question. Fair concern. Then they pivot to structure. Let's define what would make it safe. Let's put numbers around it. Let's map the risk. Validation lowers heat. Structure restores progress. Tool 4, build a pressure container. Elite negotiators can apply pressure without making the room hot. They do it by using a container. A container is a clear boundary with calm language. Examples. I hear your position. Here is ours. We can't do that term. We can do these alternatives. If that clause is required, we're not the right partner. No anger. No debate. Just calm containment. Heat comes from uncertainty and fighting. Containment removes both. Tool 5, use we carefully. Most people think we is always good. Not always. We can sound like manipulation if used too early. Elite negotiators earn we. Early phase, use I and you clearly. Later phase, use we when alignment exists. Examples. Early, what do you need to see to be comfortable? Here's what I can commit to. Later, if we agree on these terms, we can move fast. We're aligned on goals. Now let's handle constraints. This keeps the social map clean. The calm power voice, the sound of authority. If you want elite calibration, you must understand voice temperature. High status voices, slower than average, lower in pitch, not forced, just relaxed. Fewer words, clean endings of sentences. No upward question tone when stating facts. Low status voice often is fast, filled with extra words, ends with uncertainty, tries to soften every statement, laughs to reduce tension. Elite negotiators can be warm, but their voice stays grounded, because grounded voice signals options. How to respond to aggression without getting dragged in. Aggression is often a tactic. Sometimes it's real emotion. Sometimes it's performance. Either way, reacting emotionally is a trap. Here are elite responses at work because they are calm and structured. If someone says, "That price is ridiculous," you say, "It sounds high relative to your expectations." Validation. What benchmark are you comparing it to? Diagnostic. Let's break down what included and what's not. Structure. If someone says, "You're trying to squeeze us," you say, "That's not my intent." Clean reset. My intent is a fair structure that protects both sides. Frame. Which part feels one-sided? Isolation. If someone interrupts repeatedly, you say, "I'll keep this short." Pace control. Let me finish this one point, then I'll hand it to you. Boundary. I want to make sure we don't miss each other. Warmth. Notice what these do. They don't fight. They don't submit. They redirect. Redirecting is elite. The apology trap and the ego trap. Two mistakes kill calibration fast. The apology trap. Over-apologizing when you did nothing wrong. It signals weakness and invites more pressure. Better is a clean acknowledgement. Understood. I hear you. That's fair feedback. Then proceed. The ego trap. Trying to win respect by pushing harder. It creates heat and damages trust. Elite negotiators don't win moments. They win outcomes. Cooling the room when you need to say no. Saying no is where many people lose deals. They become defensive or they become harsh. Elite no has three parts: respect, boundary, alternative. Example. I understand why you want that. Respect. We can't agree to that clause. Boundary. We can offer X instead. Alternative. Or, I respect the ask. That doesn't work for us. Here's what would work. This is calm power. 11. The heat reset script when things go sideways. When a room becomes hot, elite negotiators use a reset. A reset is a short interruption that changes a rhythm. Here is a clean reset script. Let's pause for 10 seconds. I want to make sure we're solving the right problem. What is the outcome you want from this conversation? And what is a concern that could block it? This does something important. It shifts from argument to goal. Goals cool rooms. Field drill. Build your temperature reflex. If you want the skill to become automatic, train it like a reflex. Next time you negotiate, practice the sequence. When they get emotional, pause. Validate in one sentence. Ask one diagnostic question. Offer two options. State your boundary calmly. Example flow. I hear the concern. What part is most risky for you? We can handle it two ways, A or B. We can't do C. Which option do you want to explore? This is temperature control in action. The chapter rule. If you remember one rule from this chapter, remember this. Elite negotiators don't absorb heat. They redirect heat into structure because structure is calm, and calm is power. Next chapter is where things become very practical. How elite negotiators set the frame from the first minute. So they are never treated like a seller, a supplicant, or a performer, because once you control the frame, you control what yes even means. Chapter 4. Frame Control. How elite negotiators decide what the conversation means. Most negotiators think the negotiation starts when you discuss terms. Elite negotiators know it starts earlier. It starts the moment the other side decides what you are: a partner, a vendor, a threat, a desperate option, a useful tool, a serious operator. That decision is a frame. A frame is the invisible story that defines who has authority, what is normal, what is reasonable, who must prove value, who can demand concessions, what success looks like. If you lose the frame, you can win 10 arguments and still lose the deal, because every argument will be judged inside a frame that positions you as weaker. Elite negotiators don't fight inside frames. They set them. The brutal truth: people don't want logic. They want a role for you. Your words land differently depending on the role the room assigns you. If you're framed as vendor, your confidence looks like arrogance. If you're framed as expert, your confidence looks like competence. If you're framed as needy, your questions look like begging. If you're framed as selector, your questions look like evaluation. Same words, different meaning. So the first job is not persuasion. The first job is role placement. Elite negotiators aim for one role: equal evaluator. Not above them, not below them. Equal evaluator means I'm serious, I'm fair, and I'm also deciding if you are fit. That single role changes everything. The 3 frames that destroy you and how they appear. There are 3 frames that quietly kill deals. Frame A: convince me. This makes you a performer. It appears when they ask, why should we choose you? Pitch us. Explain your value. If you accept this frame, you start talking too much. Frame B: we have all the options. This makes you compete. It appears when they say, we're talking to several providers. Others can do it cheaper. You're one of many. If you accept this frame, you start discounting early. Frame C: we control time. This makes you anxious. It appears when they say, we need an answer today. Send it by end of day. If you can't decide now, we move on. If you accept this frame, you rush and lose leverage. Elite negotiators don't argue with these frames. They reframe. The core principle: frames are won with structure, not force. Most people try to win frames with dominance. That backfires. Frames are won with structure. Structure communicates authority without aggression. Elite negotiators use a simple structure: define purpose, define process, define standards, define decisions. If you can calmly define these 4, you control the frame. The elite opening, the mutual fit frame. Here is how elite negotiators open conversations, even in hostile rooms. My goal today is simple: understand what you need, share how we work, and see it as a fit on both sides. If there is, we'll map next steps. If not, we'll end cleanly. This does something powerful. It removes desperation. It also sends a signal: I'm not here to chase. I'm here to evaluate. That is high-level social calibration. How to refuse the pitch without creating friction. When they say, pitch me, most people panic and perform. Elite negotiators redirect the frame. They say, happy to, but first I want to make sure I'm addressing what actually matters to you. Can I ask a few questions so I don't waste your time with irrelevant info? This keeps authority and respect. Then they ask questions that position them as an expert. What outcome matters most? What's failed in the past? What would make this a clear success? What constraints can't be violated? Now the conversation becomes diagnostic. Diagnostics frame you as the doctor, not the salesperson. The standards frame how you stop looking negotiable. A key difference between amateurs and elites. Amateurs sound negotiable on everything. Elites sound principled, not stubborn. Principled, they speak in standards. Examples: low status, we can maybe adjust. High status, we have a standard structure for a reason. Low status, we usually don't do that, but high status, That would break the integrity of the agreement. Low status. I'll ask my boss. High status. Here's what we can prove, and here's what we can't. Standards create a psychological effect. People stop pushing where they sense principles exist, because pushing against principles is harder than pushing against preferences. The constraint flip. Turn their pressure into your structure. When someone pressures you, they are often trying to control the frame. Example, we need a discount. Elite negotiators flip it into constraints. If price is a main constraint, we have 3 levers: scope, speed, or risk. Which lever do you want to move? Now the discount request becomes a structured choice. This does 2 things. It removes emotion. It puts you back in control. You're no longer defending your price. You're designing the deal. The frame ladder, 3 levels of control. Elite negotiators operate on 3 frame levels. Level 1, content frame. What are we talking about? Level 2, process frame. How are we deciding? Level 3, identity frame. Who are we to each other? Most people fight at level 1. Elite negotiators control level 2 and 3. If you control process and identity, content becomes easy. Example, they say, your terms are unfair. Content, you respond with process plus identity. Let's define fair so we don't talk past each other. Process, I want this to be balanced, not one-sided. Identity, now the argument becomes a joint definition, not a fight. The no chase frame, how to keep leverage without being cold. There is a specific vibe that destroys negotiation. Try and secure the deal emotionally. Elite negotiators never chase, but they also don't become cold. They use calm certainty. Phrases, if this isn't a fit, no problem. I'd rather end cleanly than force something. We're not the cheapest option. We're the safest option at this level. We can move fast, but only if the structure is clean. This does not threaten. It simply states reality. Reality is high status. The decision architecture. How you control closing before it happens. Closing is not asking for the deal. Closing is building a decision path. Elite negotiators define the decision architecture early. Who needs to prove this? What criteria will they use? What can block it? What timeline is realistic? What does yes look like operationally? When you ask these questions, you do 2 things. You reveal hidden obstacles. You signal authority. People respect people who think like operators. The frame break. What to do when they try to humiliate you. Sometimes the other side uses humiliation to gain power. They say, you're not our only option. This is basic. We can get this cheaper anywhere. If you react, you lose. Elite response is calm and structured. You should absolutely compare options. The only question is, what risk are you comfortable with? If cheapest is a goal, we're not the right partner. If reliability and outcome are the goal, then let's continue. This is not arrogance. It's clean positioning. The chapter rule. Remember this. The person who defines the meaning of the conversation controls the outcome. Frames are meaning. If you don't set meaning, the other side will. And most people set meaning in a way that makes you chase. In the next chapter, we'll move from frames to something even sharper. Status engineering in real time. Not fake dominance. Not alpha behavior. But precise signals that make people stop testing you, start respecting you, and treat your boundaries as normal. Chapter 5, Status Engineering in Real Time. How elite negotiators become untestable. Status is not ego. Status is a prediction the room makes about you. A prediction about 3 things. Do you have options? Do you know what you're doing? Can you hold boundaries without emotional drama? When the room predicts yes to all 3, something changes. People stop testing you. They stop pushing tiny boundaries. They stop trying to extract free concessions. They become cooperative, not because they like you, because your presence feels untestable. And that is what elite negotiators build on purpose. The status equation, options plus standards plus composure. If you want a clean model, use this. Status equals perceived options plus clear standards plus calm composure. Options means you can walk away. Standards means you have rules, not moods. Composure means you don't get pulled into heat. You don't need to say, I have options. You signal it. And humans believe signals more than words. The room tests you automatically. Most tests are not personal. They are automatic. The brain asks, can I push this person a little? Tests look like interrupting you, challenging small details, asking for extra favors, just this once, pushing urgency, acting unimpressed, using sarcasm, dropping, we have other options, moving goalposts late. Amateurs take tests emotionally. Elite negotiators treat tests like weather. They respond cleanly. Then they continue. A test is not a crisis. It's a calibration moment. The 6 status levers elite negotiators control. Elite negotiators engineer status through 6 levers, not by acting tough, by being precise. Lever 1, stillness. Stillness signals control. Fidgeting signals internal pressure. Elite negotiators move slower than the room. They don't rush to speak. They don't rush to answer. They don't rush to fill silence. Silence is not empty. Silence is gravity. A simple rule. If the room is tense, reduce movement. If the room is fast, reduce speed. If the room is loud, reduce volume. Lever 2, clean eye contact. Not staring, not avoiding, just steady attention. Elite negotiators look at people when they speak, and they look away slowly when thinking. This creates a feeling of, I'm not afraid and I'm not hunting you. Lever 3, sentence discipline. Low status language is loose. High status language is clean. Low status habits. Long explanations. Too many qualifiers. Maybe, kind of, sort of, I think. Repeated justifications. Nervous laughter. High status habits. Short sentences. Clear endings. Fewer adjectives. Fewer apologies. Direct nouns and verbs. Compare. Low status. I just want to make sure you're comfortable, and maybe we could possibly adjust something if you'd like. High status. I want you comfortable. Let's define what you need. Then I'll tell you what we can adjust. Same warmth. More authority. Lever 4. Turn taking control. Elite negotiators don't fight for turns. They claim turns calmly. If interrupted, they don't apologize. They do this. 1 second. Let me finish this point. Then I'll give it to you. And they continue. No anger, just structure. This signals, I'm not seeking permission. Lever 5, boundary clarity. A boundary is not a threat. A boundary is a fact. Elite negotiators state boundaries like weather. We can't agree to that clause. We don't discount to solve uncertainty. We can adjust scope or timeline, not price. They don't over-explain. Over-explaining is often a status leak. Lever 6, concession design. Amateurs give concessions randomly. Elites trade concessions for something specific. Every concession is exchanged for speed, commitment, scope reduction, better terms, stronger guarantees, clearer decision criteria. They use this sentence a lot. If we do X, then we need Y. Not aggressive, just adult. The untestable tone, warm, slow, certain. This is a sound of elite status. Warmth in the face, slowness in the pace. Certainty in the structure, not emotional certainty. Structural certainty, meaning you always know what the process is. You can be friendly, but you never sound like you're hoping. Passing the 5 most common status tests. Here are the tests you will see again and again, and elite responses. Test 1. We can get it cheaper. Elite response. You probably can. The question is what you're optimizing for. Cheapest or safest outcome. If cheapest is a priority, we're not the right fit. This reframes without arguing. Test 2. Last minute extra demands. Elite response. That's a new requirement. If we add that, we need to adjust either scope, timeline, or price. Which lever do you want to move? This turns pushiness into math. Test 3. Force urgency. Elite response. I understand the timeline. We can move fast, but we won't move blind. Here's what we need to decide today and what can wait. You respect urgency. You refuse panic. Test 4, the authority game. My boss says no. Elite response. Understood. What concern is your boss trying to avoid? If we solve that concern with this move, now you negotiate the motive, not the person. Test 5, disrespect disguised as directness. Elite response. I'm fine with direct. Let's keep it clean and specific. Which exact point do you disagree with? You don't punish them. You tighten the rules. Rules create status. The hidden status killer, needy transparency. A common mistake is oversharing to build trust. Oversharing can sound like, I really want this. We need this to work. We're counting on you. I hope you like us. It's human, but it lowers perceived options. Elite negotiators do calm transparency instead. They say, we like to work together if the structure is right. If it's not right, we'll end cleanly. No pressure either way. That's honesty without neediness. Status repair. What to do if you slip. Everyone slips. You talk too much. You defend. You get emotional. Elite negotiators repair fast. They don't pretend it didn't happen. They do a reset. Let me simplify. Here's the core point. 2 options. Which do you prefer? Short, clean, forward. Repair is not apology. Repair is structure. The status-safe assert script. When you need to assert authority without heat, use this structure. Respect, reality, path forward. Example, I understand why you want that. We can't agree to it. Here's what we can do instead. Or, that's fair to ask. It doesn't work for our model. We can solve the same goal this way. This keeps the room calm while strengthening your position. Field drill, build untestable. Signals in 7 days. Do this for 1 week. Day 1 to 2, reduce speed. Speak 15% slower than normal. Day 3, remove hedging words. Delete maybe kind of, I think from key sentences. Day 4, practice clean boundaries. Say we can't do that once in a low-stakes conversation. Day 5, use if X then Y. Trade something small for something small. Day 6, practice interruption control. Say, let me finish this point. Day 7, practice the reset. Let me simplify. Here are 2 options. This is how status becomes automatic, not a performance. A habit, the chapter rule. Status is not something you claim. Status is something you signal consistently. Options, standards, composure. When you signal those 3, you become untestable. And when you become untestable, negotiation gets easier. Not because people become nicer, because the room stops trying to move you. Next chapter, we go into a critical skill, how elite negotiators ask questions that control the conversation without sounding controlling, because questions are the cleanest form of power. Chapter 6, Question Power, how elite negotiators control the conversation without looking controlling. Most people think control comes from talking. Elite negotiators control rooms mainly through questions, not random questions. Strategic questions, because questions do 3 things at once. They gather intelligence. They shape the other person's thinking. They define what matters. And the best part is this. A question feels respectful. It gives the other side a sense of autonomy, but it quietly moves a negotiation where you want it to go. That is high-level calibration. The first rule, questions create frames. A statement can be challenged. A question often becomes the agenda. If you say, this deal is fair, they can say, no, it isn't. But if you ask, what would make this deal feel fair on your side? Now they are building the definition of fairness with you. That's frame control without force. Elite negotiators use questions to create the frame they want. Clarity, standards, constraints, decision criteria, mutual evaluation. The 5 question types elite negotiators use. Elite negotiators don't ask more questions. They ask the right categories. Type 1, outcome questions. These clarify what winning actually means. What outcome matters most? If this works perfectly, what changes? What does success look like in measurable terms? Outcome questions stop vague talk. Vague talk kills deals. Type 2, constraint questions. These reveal the invisible walls. What can be violated? What's fixed and what's flexible? Where do you have zero tolerance? Constraints are more useful than preferences because constraints show where negotiation is real. Type 3, decision questions. These reveal how the deal is actually decided. Who approves this? What criteria will they use? What could block approval, even if you like it? When do you need to decide? If you don't know the decision system, you're negotiating blind. Type 4, risk questions. These expose fear and safety motives. What risk worries you most? What happened last time that makes you cautious? What would make this feel safe enough to move forward? Risk questions are elite because they make hidden motives visible. Type 5, trade questions. These create leverage without aggression. If we give you X, what can you give us in return? What would you be willing to change to get that? Which lever matters more, price, speed, or scope? Trade questions convert demands into exchanges. That's the difference between amateurs and professionals. The question ladder that pulls truth out of people. Elite negotiators use a ladder. They start wide, then they narrow. Step 1, wide. What are you trying to accomplish? Step 2, clarify. What does success look like? Step 3, constraints. What can't change? Step 4, risk. What could go wrong? Step 5, decision. Who decides and by what criteria? Step 6, trade. If we solve those constraints, what commitment can you make? This ladder does something important. It forces seriousness. Seriousness creates respect. The trap questions you must avoid. Some questions instantly lower your status because they signal neediness or uncertainty. Avoid these. Is this okay? Do you like it? Would you maybe consider? What do you think? Too vague. Are we good? Signals approval seeking. Elite negotiators replace them with structured questions. Instead of, is this okay? Say, which part doesn't work? Instead of, do you like it? Say, does this meet your constraints? Instead of, what do you think? Say, what's your main concern? This keeps you in an evaluator role. The calibration secret. Ask questions that protect status. People lie in negotiations for one reason. They don't feel safe telling the truth. Not physical safety, status safety. So elite negotiators ask questions in a way that give the other person a respectful exit. Example, bad. Why can't you approve this? Better. What would you need to see to approve this? Bad. Are you the decision maker? Better. Who else needs to feel comfortable with this? Bad. Are you stalling? Better. What's the main concern that still feels unresolved? These are status safe. They pull truth out without triggering defense. The one question that exposes the real objection. Here's a question elite negotiators love because it destroys vagueness. What's the real concern? But it must be delivered calmly. Even better versions. What's the real concern on your side? What's the concern behind concern? If we solve one thing today, what should it be? When someone gives you 5 objections, this question forces prioritization. Prioritization creates progress. How to use questions to stop price pressure. When the other side pushes price, amateurs defend. Elite negotiators diagnose. They use questions that shift from price to value plus constraints. Examples. Is this a budget constraint or a value concern? What number did you expect, and what is that based on? If price stays the same, what would you need added to feel good? If we reduce scope, what would you remove first? Now price becomes design, and design is calm. The 2-option question, control without control. If you want to guide someone without forcing them, use 2-option questions. Do you want the fast path or the flexible path? Is the bigger issue risk or budget? Should we solve timeline first or terms first? 2 options are powerful because they remove chaos, prevent endless debate, keep autonomy, move the conversation forward. It's a gentle steering wheel. The commitment bridge, turn answers into movement. A big problem is this. People answer questions, but nothing advances. Elite negotiators bridge every important answer into commitment. They use phrases like, if that's a constraint, then the next step is, if we solve that, can we agree to move forward? If we deliver X by Y date, are you ready to approve? What commitment can you make if we do this? This is where control becomes real. The question rhythm, don't interrogate. Elite negotiators don't ask 10 questions in a row. That feels like interrogation. They use a rhythm. Ask a question. Listen fully. Summarize in one sentence. Confirm. Then ask the next. Example rhythm. What's the main outcome you want? Listen. So your priority is reliability over speed. Correct. Okay. What risk worries you most? This rhythm builds trust. Trust increases truth. Field script. The Elite 8 questions. Here are 8 questions that can run almost any negotiation. What outcome matters most? What does success look like in numbers? What constraints can't be violated? What risk worries you most? What happened last time that makes you cautious? Who approves this, and what criteria will they use? What could block approval, even if you like it? If we solve those points, what commitment can you make? If you can ask these calmly, you will look like a serious operator. The chapter rule. The highest status in negotiation is not talking power. It's thinking power. Questions display thinking power. And thinking power creates authority without aggression. Next chapter, we go into one of the most valuable skills in elite negotiation. How to handle lies, manipulation, and bad faith without accusing, without drama, and without losing the relationship. Because the real world is not always clean. Chapter 7. Bad Faith, Lies, and Dirty Tactics. How elite negotiators defend without drama. Sooner or later you meet a negotiator who doesn't negotiate clean. They distort facts. They hide constraints. They promise things they can't deliver. They use pressure, guilt, intimidation, or confusion. Most people react in one of two bad ways. They either attack or they submit. Elite negotiators do neither. They stay calm. They stay precise. They protect the relationship and the boundary. Because the goal is not to expose someone. The goal is to stay unexploitable. The first rule, don't diagnose intent too early. You don't know if someone is lying. Sometimes they're confused. Sometimes they are misinformed. Sometimes they are protecting status. Sometimes they are testing you. Elite negotiators don't start with accusation. They start with verification. They treat everything as a claim that must be clarified. This keeps the room from going hot, and it keeps you in control. The 3 modes of counterpart behavior. Elite negotiators sort people into 3 modes. Green, good faith. Open, consistent, honest about constraints. Yellow, mixed faith. They want a deal, but they use tactics. They hide motives. They test boundaries. Red, bad faith. They misrepresent. They move goalposts constantly. They weaponize confusion. They break commitments. Your strategy changes based on the mode. Green equals collaborate. Yellow equals structure hard. Red equals limit exposure or exit. This is not moral judgment. It is risk management. The core defense. Clarity creates safety. Dirty tactics thrive in fog. So elite negotiators do one thing repeatedly. They turn fog into clarity. They use definitions, numbers, timelines, written recaps, decision criteria, explicit trade rules. Clarity is not rigid. Clarity is protection. The most common dirty tactics and the clean counters. Here are the tactics you will see often, and the counters that work because they are calm and specific. Tactic 1. False urgency. We need an answer today. Counter. I understand the timeline. We can move fast, but we won't move blind. Here's what we can decide today and what needs verification. Then you propose a micro decision. We can agree on principles today. Details tomorrow. This breaks panic without breaking progress. Tactic 2. The fake anchor. They throw an extreme number to reset reality. Counter. Help me understand how you got that number. What benchmark are you using? Let's build this from constraints and scope. You don't argue with the anchor. You interrogate the anchor's logic. Anchors die when forced to explain. Tactic 3, the nibble last-minute extra request. Just add this small thing. Counter, that's an additional requirement. If we add it, we need to adjust scope, timeline, or price. Which lever do you want to move? Now the nibble becomes a trade. Tactic 4, vague authority. Legal won't allow it. My boss says no. Counter, understood. What exact clause is the issue? What risk are they trying to avoid? If we solve that risk, does this move? You're not fighting the boss. You're negotiating the motive. Tactic 5, confusion overload. They dump too many points to make you agree out of exhaustion. Counter, let's isolate. There are 3 topics here. Which is most important? We'll solve one at a time. Elite negotiators reduce chaos into a list. Lists create control. Tactic 6, guilt and moral pressure. If you care, you do this. Be reasonable. Counter, I want a fair deal. Fair means balanced. Let's define reasonable in terms of terms and risk. You don't argue morality. You convert it into standards. Tactic 7, intimidation or disrespect. That's ridiculous. You don't understand this business. Counter, I'm fine with direct. Let's keep it specific. Which exact part doesn't work? You don't absorb the insult. You tighten the rules. Rules cool the room and raise your status. The non-accusation method. How to expose inconsistency. Elite negotiators expose lies without saying you're lying. They use the inconsistency spotlight. It has 3 steps. Neutral observation. Earlier you said X. Present the conflict. Now I'm hearing why. Request reconciliation. Help me understand how both can be true. Example, earlier you said approvals are simple. Now we have 3 new approvers. Help me understand what changed. This forces them to correct, clarify, or reveal motive without you attacking. The proof protocol. Trust, then verify. Elite negotiators don't rely on vibes. They rely on proof. They verify using simple protocols. Can you put that in writing? Who will own that internally? What is the exact deadline? What happens if it slips? What's the acceptance criteria? If they are honest, they will answer. If they are playing games, they will get vague or defensive. That tells you what mode you're in. The red flag pattern, moving goalposts. This is one of the clearest signs of bad faith. You agree, then the terms change. Then they change again. Elite response is not anger. It's a boundary plus consequence. We've changed scope twice. We need stability to continue. From here, any new requirements change price and timeline. If it continues, if requirements keep changing, we should pause. We'll resume when constraints are stable. This protects you without drama. How elite negotiators stay safe when they must keep talking. Sometimes you can't walk away immediately. You need to keep access, keep diplomacy, keep optionality. Elite negotiators reduce exposure with structure, smaller commitments, shorter timelines, milestone-based agreements, limited pilots, written checkpoints, clear exit clauses. They don't trust harder, they structure safer. The clean exit, how to walk away without. Burning the bridge. If the counterpart is red mode, the goal is clean separation. Elite exit script. I don't think we can reach a structure that works for both sides. I'd rather end cleanly than force it. If circumstances change, we can revisit. No accusation, no lecture, no emotional dump, just reality. This keeps your reputation strong. The chapter rule. Dirty tactics only work in 2 conditions. You get emotional. The conversation stays vague. Elite negotiators stay calm, and they force clarity. That's the whole defense. Next chapter, we go into something that makes everything easier. Pre-negotiation positioning. How elite negotiators shape the battlefield before the meeting starts, so they don't need to fight inside the negotiation. Chapter 8. Pre-negotiation positioning. Winning before the meeting starts. If you only start negotiating when the call begins, you're late. Elite negotiators negotiate before the negotiation. They shape expectations. They shape standards. They shape the social map. So when the meeting starts, half the game is already decided. Most people skip this because it feels like extra work. But this is where elite leverage is created. Because the strongest negotiating position is this. The other side already believes you are a serious option with clear standards and a clean ability to walk away. The pre-frame, what they believe about you before you arrive, before the first hello. The other side has a story about you. That story comes from how you were introduced, your reputation, your online presence, how you write emails, how you schedule the meeting, how you set agenda, how you ask for information. This story becomes a pre-frame, and pre-frames are powerful. If the pre-frame is vendor, they will test you more. If the pre-frame is expert, they will respect boundaries sooner. Elite negotiators engineer the pre-frame, not with hype, with signals. The 3 pre-meeting signals that create authority. Here are the signals that instantly position you as higher value. Signal 1, clarity of process. Elite negotiators send a simple process message before the meeting. To make this efficient, here's the structure I propose: outcomes, constraints, options, next steps. This is a status signal. It communicates. I run clean processes. People respect process owners. Signal 2, control preparation requests. They ask for information in advance, but not like a beggar. They ask like an operator. To avoid wasting time, can you share current state, target outcome, decision timeline, who approves? If they provide it, good. If they refuse, you learn something. Refusal often signals low seriousness or hidden chaos. Signal 3, a clean agenda. They send 3 to 5 bullet points, not a long document, just enough to create structure. Example agenda. Align on goals and success criteria. Identify constraints and non-negotiables. Review options and trade-offs. Confirm decision path and next steps. This makes you look like the adult in the room. The qualification mindset. You're not chosen yet, and neither are they. Most people try to be chosen. Elite negotiators qualify the other side. They enter with this internal sentence: I'm here to see if this is a fit. That mindset alone changes your voice, pace, and boundaries. It prevents neediness leaks. It also creates something subtle. People want what feels selective. If you behave like you accept everyone, you look low value. If you behave like you evaluate fit, you look higher value. This is not arrogance. It is professional selection. The pre-meeting questions that create leverage. Before the meeting, elite negotiators try to get answers to 4 questions. What problem are we solving? What is their true constraint? How is a decision made? What alternatives do they have? They do it with simple messages. What would make this a clear win for you? What constraints are fixed? Who needs to sign off? Are you comparing other options? Notice they ask directly. Direct questions create clarity. Clarity creates leverage. They anchor the standard move. Here's a powerful pre-negotiation technique. You anchor your standards early, not by listing demands, by describing how you normally work. Example, for this type of engagement, we typically work with X terms because it reduces risk and keeps delivery clean. Now, your terms sound normal. Normal is powerful. People resist unusual requests. They accept standard practice more easily. This is how elites reduce negotiation friction later. The elite scheduling signal. Time is a status message. How you schedule communicates status. Low status scheduling looks like endless availability, immediate responses, changing times repeatedly, apologizing for scheduling. Elite scheduling looks like a few clean time options, calm boundaries, no emotional energy. Example, I can do Tuesday 11 o'clock or Wednesday 1600 hours. If neither works, send 2 alternatives. Short, adult, it signals. I'm busy, organized, and not chasing. The deal shape preview. Stop surprises early. A lot of conflict comes from surprise. Elite negotiators reduce surprise by previewing the deal shape, not the full offer. The shape, example, Just so we're aligned, this usually falls in the range of X to Y depending on scope. Timeline is usually 4 to 6 weeks depending on approvals. If your budget is far below that, we may not be a fit. This does something strong. It protects you from wasting time, and it pre-qualifies the other side. It also triggers a psychological effect. If they continue, they implicitly accept the ballpark, the soft commitment before the hard commitment. Elite negotiators secure a soft commitment before asking for a hard one. Soft commitment examples. If we can meet these constraints, are you open to moving forward? If we solve the risk points, would you be comfortable recommending this internally? If the structure is clean, can we move the paperwork next? This creates a pathway. Without it, the meeting can feel like endless talk. Soft commitments make closing natural later. The pre-meeting power move nobody notices. Written recap. After any important call, elite negotiators send a short recap. Not long, not emotional, just structured. Goals, constraints, options discussed. Next steps, owners and dates. This recap becomes a quiet contract. It prevents memory manipulation, goalpost moves. We never said that. Games. And it increases your authority because you act like an operator. The pre-negotiation red flags. Pre-negotiation is also where you detect danger. Red flags. They refuse to share basic info. They can't name a decision maker. Their timeline is chaotic. They want everything for free before commitment. They constantly reschedule. They avoid writing anything down. They push urgency but don't commit. Elite negotiators don't argue with red flags. They structure harder or they exit. 11. Field system. Your pre-negotiation checklist. Use this checklist before any serious negotiation. Send a 4-bullet agenda. Request key info, outcome, constraints, decision path. Preview the deal shape, range, timeline, standards. Secure one soft commitment. Plan your boundary points. Decide your walkaway condition. Prepare 2 trade options. If you do just this, your in-meeting performance improves dramatically because you walk in with clarity, options, structure, status. 12. The chapter rule. Elite negotiators don't rely on charisma in the room. They rely on positioning before the room. When you control the pre-frame, you reduce tests, you reduce heat, and you reduce the amount of persuasion needed. Next chapter, we go into a skill that separates good negotiators from elite ones. Concessions and trading. How to give without losing status. How to take without creating enemies. And how to design trades that make both sides feel like they won. Chapter 9. Concessions and trades. How elite negotiators give without losing status. Most people lose negotiations in one moment. Not when the other side says no. When the other side asks, can you do a little better? Amateurs hear that and think, if I give, they'll like me. So they give something for nothing. That is not a concession. That is a donation. And donations destroy your status. Elite negotiators still concede. They still compromise. But they do it in a way that increases respect. Their rule is simple. Everything is tradable. Nothing is free. The concession myth. If I'm flexible, I'll win. Flexibility is good only when it is structured. Unstructured flexibility signals low value, uncertainty, neediness, weak standards. It teaches the other side. This person moves without pressure, so they push more. Elite negotiators are flexible inside a clear system. That system is trading. The trade mindset. You are designing exchange. Elite negotiators never ask, what can I give? They ask, what can I trade that costs me little and matters to them? This is why they win, because value is not objective. Value is personal. Something can be cheap for you and expensive for them. Example, you can deliver a report in 48 hours instead of 7 days. Cheap for you if you're organized. For them, speed might unlock a decision and save political risk. Very valuable. Trade is value engineering. The 3 categories of concessions. Elite negotiators classify concessions into 3 categories. Low cost for you, high value for them. These are gold. High cost for you, low value for them. Never give these. High cost for both sides. Only do these if it ends the negotiation cleanly. This classification stops emotional bargaining. It forces intelligence. The concession ladder: give small, then trade up. Amateurs jump to big concessions early. Elite negotiators use a ladder. They start with clarity, structure, small adjustments. Only later, if needed, they move into bigger trades. Because early big concessions create a narrative. They had room. They were hiding it. That narrative destroys trust and invites more pressure. So elites do this instead. Small first, then trade. The one sentence that protects you. Here is a sentence you must learn. If we do that, we would need... This sentence turns a demand into a trade instantly. Examples. If we reduce price, we would need a longer commitment. If we accelerate timeline, we would need faster approvals. If we add scope, we would need to adjust price. If we change the clause, we would need a stronger guarantee. You're not refusing. You're designing exchange. That keeps the room warm and respectful. The rule of reciprocal movement. Elite negotiators watch one thing. Is the other side moving too? If you move and they don't move, you're losing. So elites require reciprocal movement. They say, I can move on X if you can move on Y. If we do this, what can you do? What flexibility do you have on your side? They keep the trade balanced. Balance creates respect. The 5 high-value trade levers. Here are the levers elite negotiators trade with most often. Lever 1, scope. You can reduce or reorder what's included. We can keep price if we reduce scope. We can include that as phase 2. Scope is powerful because it feels fair. Lever 2, timeline. Time is often easier to trade than money. We can deliver faster if approvals are faster. We can hold price if we extend timeline. Timeline trades reduce heat because they feel operational, not personal. Lever 3, risk. Risk is the hidden currency. We can agree if liability is capped. We can do that if acceptance criteria are clear. Risk trades often solve fear motives. Lever 4, commitment. Commitment creates leverage. We can reduce price for a 12-month commitment. We can add support if you commit to volume. Commitment trades convert uncertainty into stability. Lever 5, certainty. Certainty is extremely valuable to many organizations. We can hold this price if decision is by Friday. We can reserve capacity if the deposit is paid. Certainty trades are elite because they protect your time and reduce chaos. How elite negotiators concede without looking weak. A concession can look weak if it feels emotional. Okay, fine. Elite concessions look principled and structured. They use language like, we can do that under these conditions. We can make that adjustment if we also adjust X. We can meet that goal with a different structure. They also explain the logic briefly. This keeps the agreement balanced. This protects delivery quality. This reduces risk on both sides. This signals competence, not weakness. The concession packaging trick. Never give one thing alone. When you concede, package it with something. Example, instead of giving a discount alone, we can reduce price by 5% if we do a 12-month term and standard payment terms. Now it feels like a design deal, not a collapse. Packaging also prevents future nibbles because the deal becomes a bundle. Bundles are harder to attack. The take skill, how to ask for more without creating enemies. Elite negotiators are not shy about taking, but they take cleanly. They ask for more in ways that sound normal. Phrases. To make this work on our side, we would need... The clean way to solve this is, if you want X, the cost is Y. Here's what it would take. Notice, no begging, no aggression, just reality. The counterpart who won't trade. Some people demand concessions and offer nothing. This is where amateurs panic. Elite negotiators do 2 things. They surface the pattern. I'm noticing we're moving mostly on our side. They set a rule. For us to continue, we need reciprocal movement. If still nothing changes, then we can't move further. Clean, no heat. The concession trap. Split the difference. Splitting feels fair, but often it is lazy and expensive. Elite negotiators don't split by default. They trade based on value. Instead of splitting, they ask, what matters most to you? Price, speed, or risk? Which part is hardest for you? If we solve that, can we keep the rest? This creates a smarter agreement. Field drill your trade matrix. Before serious negotiations, write a simple trade matrix. 3 columns. Can give low cost, flexible delivery date, payment schedule options, phase rollout, extra reporting, limited support window, need to protect, high cost, core pricing, liability terms, scope creep, payment certainty, want to take, faster decision, longer commitment, reference/case study, upfront deposit, clear acceptance criteria. When you have this matrix, you stop improvising. Improvisation leads to donations. The chapter rule. Concessions do not reduce conflict. Trades reduce conflict. A concession without a trade teaches them to push. A trade teaches them to negotiate like adults. Next chapter, we go into the last major elite skill. How to close without closing. How to make agreement feel natural. And how to leave the other side feeling respected, even when you win. Chapter 10, Closing Without Closing, the elite conclusion system. Most people think closing is a moment, a final push, a persuasive line, a strong, so are we doing this? Elite negotiators don't close like that. They build a conclusion that feels inevitable, so the other side doesn't feel pressured. They feel guided, because pressure creates resistance. Guidance creates cooperation. Closing at the elite level is not a trick. It is a sequence of small agreements that makes yes the cleanest next step. The real reason deals don't close. Most deals don't fail on price. They fail on one of 3 invisible blocks. Unresolved risk. Someone feels unsafe. Unresolved status. Someone feels threatened or embarrassed. Unresolved process. Nobody knows how the decision actually happens. Elite negotiators close by removing these blocks in order, not by asking harder. The closing map, risk, criteria, decision, commitment. Elite negotiators run closing like a map. Step 1, risk. What still feels risky on your side? Step 2, criteria. What would you need to see to feel confident? Step 3, decision. Who signs off and what's the timeline? Step 4, commitment. If we solve those points, can we move forward? That's it. Notice the psychology. You're not demanding a yes. You're building conditions for a yes. Conditions reduce anxiety. The yes ladder. Small agreements that create momentum. Elite negotiators don't hunt for one big yes. They collect small yes. Examples of small yes. We agree on the goal. We agree on success criteria. We agree on the constraints. We agree on the process. We agree on the timeline. We agree on the draft terms. By the time they ask for commitment, the other side is already aligned. A big yes then feels like the final step, not a leap. The soft close, ask for direction, not approval. If you ask for approval, you lower your status. Elite negotiators ask for direction. Instead of, can you approve this? They ask, what's the next step from your side? Do we move to paperwork, or is there one concern left? Should we schedule legal review, or do you need internal alignment first? What would you like to do next? Direction questions make them lead themselves into the close. And when people choose a path, they feel ownership. Ownership creates commitment. The 2-option close, the cleanest tool. One of the strongest closing tools is giving 2 clean paths. We have 2 good paths. Option A is faster with standard terms. Option B is slower with custom terms. Which path fits your internal constraints? This avoids begging. It avoids pressure. It avoids endless thinking. It also forces a decision framework. Frameworks close deals. How elite negotiators handle. We need to think about it. This phrase is often not a real delay. It can mean, They feel risk. They need internal politics. They want leverage. They're hiding a no. Elite negotiators don't argue. They clarify. They use a calm triage. Totally fair. When you say think about it, is a risk concern, a budget concern, or internal alignment? Which one is a real blocker? Then they isolate. If we solve that blocker, does this move? This turns vague delay into a specific obstacle. Specific obstacles can be solved. The no surprise summary, closing without drama. Before the final step, elite negotiators summarize the deal in a short, clean way, not emotional, not sleazy, just reality. Example, so we're aligned on the goal, X. Success is measured by Y. Constraints are Z. We're doing option A. Timeline is 4 weeks. Next step is contract draft by Tuesday. This is powerful because it reduces cognitive load. Humans say no when a deal feels complex. Simplicity creates yes. The decision owner lock-in. A common failure is thinking you're closing with the right person. Elite negotiators confirm decision ownership clearly. Who is the final approver? Who can block it? What will they care about most? Would it help if we had them on the next call? If you don't lock this in, you can get stuck in endless loops. Closing with integrity. Make them feel respected. Even when you win terms, you must protect dignity. Elite negotiators avoid one thing. They avoid making the other side feel trapped. They use language like, I want this to feel fair on your side too. If this doesn't work, we can end cleanly. No pressure either way, just clarity. This reduces defensive no. People choose yes when their status is safe. The commitment bridge turn agreement into action. Here is where many deals die. People verbally agree, then nothing happens. Elite negotiators bridge to action with specifics. Great, let's lock next steps. Who owns the draft on your side? What date should we target for signature? What's the first delivery milestone? When do we meet again? Then they send a written recap. Not optional. A recap is the quiet enforcement mechanism. The two types of closing, collaborative versus decisive. Elite negotiators choose one of two closing styles. Collaborative closing, warm room. Let's finalize what makes this safe and clean for both sides. Decisive closing, stalling or yellow/red behavior. Here's the clean structure. If it works, we move. If not, we pause. The key is calibration. If you use decisive closing too early, you create heat. If you use collaborative closing too long, you get delayed. Elite negotiators switch styles based on behavior. The clean no close, when the best close is exit. Sometimes the correct close is leaving. Elite negotiators exit without burning the bridge. I don't think we can reach a structure that works for both sides. I'd rather end cleanly than force it. If constraints change, we can revisit. This preserves reputation and prevents wasted time. Field script, the elite closing sequence. Use this exact sequence in real life. What's the main concern left? What would you need to see to feel confident? If we solve that, can we move forward? Who signs off and by when? 2 pads, A or B. Which do you prefer? Great. Next steps, owner date document. This works because it's not emotional, it's operational. The chapter rule. Closing is not persuasion at the end. Closing is risk removal plus decision architecture. When you remove risk, clarify criteria, and build a decision path, closing becomes a natural step. Next chapter is the final chapter. We'll combine everything into one operating system you can run in any negotiation. A compact checklist, a real-time calibration loop, and a simple way to practice until it becomes automatic.